So here we are, week one into the general election campaign, and you're already beginning to see the contours of the campaigns that the various parties are going to run. I remember I talked to someone in Downing Street right at the beginning of the race, and they said, what you're going to see is us making the plays and Labour being very cautious. And I think that is what is effectively playing out. Why? Well, it's no surprise. The Tories are miles behind, according to the opinion polls, so they need to change the dial. We're going to look at 4 different areas that show that it is the Tories taking all the risks in this campaign. Firstly, let's just go back right to the beginning.
We will have a general election on the 4th of July.
The decision to go early on the campaign. Rishi Sunak as a politician isn't known for being a risk taker. And the safe option, and what everybody assumed in Westminster would happen, is that the Tories would wait until the autumn to call the race. That would give them more time, something might crop up, the economy might improve a bit. But actually, last week they shocked everybody and decided to go for July the 4th. And I think that speaks to this wider strategy that they're pursuing. They want to somehow shock the electorate into thinking about this race differently.
How would you sum up the past week of Rishi's campaign?
Fupa.
Pretty bad so far. It just seems error prone, gaff prone.
And a bit gimmicky.
What's riskier than rolling the dice when you're 20 points behind? I think it was born of frustration that nothing was changing the polls for practically 18 months. And they had this idea in Number 10 that if you went early, suddenly voters would not be thinking about the election miles away, but one right up close to them, and possibly look at Labour with more scrutiny. The second proof point is the Tories' election debate strategy. Ever since 2010,
Yes, I've always been in favour of TV debates.
when TV debates emerged as a thing in British politics, the front runner has been more cautious to do them, and the person who appears to be behind more willing to do them. In 2010, David Cameron was ahead and risked going for TV debates, and it backfired to some degree. Cleggmania happened, where the Lib Dem leader Nick Clegg surged in the polls. Ultimately, the Tories fell short of an overall majority in that election. In 2015, when David Cameron was Prime Minister, he was more reluctant to do TV debates. And in 2017, Theresa May actually refused to debate Jeremy Corbyn, but was seen to have got some backlash from that.
Prime Minister, if you're so strong and Jeremy Corbyn's so weak, as you said, why have you sent Amber Rudd to take on his arguments at the debate tonight?
So, in this election where Labour are miles ahead in the polls, Rishi Sunak has been demanding more debates. The Telegraph were the ones who broke that he wanted a debate every week. That would have been 6 debates, a record since they were introduced in 2010. Keir Starmer, much more cautious. The indication from his team is he's happy to do 2 head-to-head debates, and that's pretty much it. So it's clear the Tory strategy is to maximise uncertainty. Why? Well, it's pretty obvious. When the cameras are rolling, anything can happen. Ed Miliband had that moment in 2015, you might remember, when he tripped coming off stage. It seemed to typify his weakness compared to David Cameron. One head-to-head debate has already been announced on ITV next Tuesday. Others are expected. Negotiations are continuing.
Did you see anything about this announcement of the national service policy that Rishi announced?
I saw it on TikTok, yeah.
Randomly deciding he was bringing back national service overnight. Seems like something there should be a bit more of a debate around.
I don't agree with it, but he's just trying to do stuff to try and get a bit of publicity.
And third, policy announcements. You may have spotted a policy blitz from the Tories.
This modern form of national service will mean that young people get the skills and the opportunities they need.
The one that's really caught the eye has been national service, the idea that every 18-year-old will either have to serve in the military or have to do some kind of charitable endeavours every weekend for a year.
Too many young people living in their own bubble, whether it be a digital bubble or a social bubble, and we want to get back to the situation where people are mixing with young people from different areas, different economic groups, different religions.
There was a lot of debate about it, some backlash from Tory MPs, but the Prime Minister's team hoped they're cutting through with a new idea. And it wasn't just national service. We've also had this week the idea that the Tories will promise that the state pension will never be taxed. Currently on the forecast, it may well be taxed in the coming years ahead. And then there's been the announcement to close lots of Mickey Mouse courses, as the Tories call them. Those are undergraduate degrees that aren't delivering that much for students, and they look at metrics such as how much you would earn after a course or whether it leads to a job. We don't know which courses these would be, they haven't actually named them, But again, it's this idea that somehow they're intervening with new policy ideas to change the agenda. Contrast that with what Labour are doing. They're actually being pretty defensive on policy announcements. They haven't tried to announce any game-changing new ideas. In fact, we're not expecting that many in the manifesto. They largely have their set of policies that they're happy to go into battle with. And why? Well, they're so far ahead, why take any risks?
So if you had to describe Keir's campaign in one word?
Dull.
I would say it's pretty positive. No one really cares because we all know he's going to win, so he kind of gets a free pass on most stuff.
There seems to be a lot of shrugs going on at the moment, but maybe that's just where we are as a country.
So maybe he's the right man for the job, isn't it?
And the fourth proof point is how the Tories are attacking Labour. Now this needs a bit of explanation, but bear with me. On Wednesday night, myself and a few other journalists got a call from Tory HQ. They said we are going to be launching a big attack on Labour in the morning. Specifically, we think they're deliberately not ruling out a rise to VAT, and we're going to challenge them on it. They said Jeremy Hunt is going to hit the broadcast saying, Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, we want you to rule out raising VAT because we think you're secretly going to do that.
There are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
And they launched a poster to try and hammer this home. It said, if you think Labour is going to win, start saving, with a big picture of a piggy bank. In fact, we saw it just drive past a moment ago. So Jeremy Hunt wrote for the Telegraph outlining that position, and it was an attempt to try and bounce Labour off their comfort zone. The problem was Labour reacted pretty quickly and pretty explicitly. They rushed out their economic spokesman to say yes, on the record, categorically, we will not be raising VAT. And that made it much harder for the Tories to drum up this concern. Now, the attack may not have worked as the Tories desired, but it hammers home that central point. They are trying to make political plays that change the dynamic, that change the weather. They're the ones taking the risks. But is it going to work? Well, we have had a flurry of opinion polls in the last week, and to be honest, there is no evidence it yet is. There's been no massive drop in the Labour lead across all the polls, as a generalisation. For example, the Telegraph Savanta poll had Labour 17 percentage points ahead before the snap election was called, and this week they're still 17 points ahead. So the strategy could work at some point, but thus far there's no evidence it is. Westminster Source is a Telegraph series taking you behind the scenes of British politics. If you want live news and analysis about politics, please do check our Telegraph website and app. And if there's a topic you think we should be covering, put it in a comment below.